ಬಾಬಾರ್ ಅವರನ್ನ ಸ್ವಾಗತಿಸೋಣ. ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಆನ್ಲೈನ್ ವಾಟ್ಸ್ಆಪ್ ಟೀಮ್ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸಾಫ್ಟ್ ಟೀಮ್ಸ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೀತಾ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕರೆಗೆ ಹೋಗೊಟ್ಟು ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ವೈಸ್ ಪ್ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಅವರು ಹಾಗೂ ಹಲವಾರು ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಕೋಆರ್ಡಿನೇಟರ್ಸ್ ಅವರು, ನಮ್ಮ ಯೂತ್ ವಿಂಗ್ ನ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಯೂತ್ ಕೋಆರ್ಡಿನೇಟರ್ ಅಂತ ಶ್ರೀ ರಾಜಶೇಖರ್ ರೆಡ್ಡಿ ಅವರು, ನಳಿನಿ ಉಳ್ಳಾಳ್ ಅವರು, ಹಾಗೆ ಹಲವಾರು ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಕೋಆರ್ಡಿನೇಟರ್ಸ್, ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್, ಸಮಿತಿ ಕನ್ವೀನರ್ಸ್ ಕೂಡ ಜಾಯ್ನ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ನಮ್ಮ ಯೂತ್ ವಿಂಗ್ ಇಂದ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಯುವಕ ಯುವತಿಯರು ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ಬಹಳ ಉತ್ಸುಕತೆಯಿಂದ ಕಾಯ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ. ಸೊ ಈಗ ನಾನು ಹೆಚ್ಚು ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗದೆ ಬ್ರದರ್ ಅಮೇಯ್ ದೇಶಪಾಂಡೆಯನ್ನ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋ ಕೆಲಸ ಕೂಡ ನನಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. There's a saying in there's a Japanese proverb which says, better than 1,000 days of diligent study is one day with a great teacher. Brother Ameya Deshpande is one of the finest gems among Sai students. People who have been chosen by him to spread his message are verily the saints, sages. So we are very lucky to have Brother Ameya Deshpande speaking to us on this topic. What does Swami want from us? Swami namminda ಏನನ್ನ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ? It is very simple. Swami has told many times that we have to make our lives his message. We have to live for Swami. We have to live by what he has said. So we need to have that wisdom to ask Swami that we want you, we want your love, and we want your guidance so that we follow your message and we make our lives his message. Brother Ameya Deshpande hails from a very devout intellectual family as a Maharashtra. He was introduced very early to Sai organization. He joined Satya Sai Primary School, Prashantinilayam in 1989. He finished his BCom from Bangalore University in the year 2000. He got MBA at Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning in 2003 and completed the MPhil program, and he was awarded the gold medal in 2007 for distinction in MPhil. More than his academic qualification, his Sai qualifications are above. It stands above all of them. So he has acted and directed many dramas in Divine Presence, and he is the part of the prestigious Prashanti Bhajan group since 2003. And he is currently a research scholar at Sri Satya Sai Center for Human Values at Prashantinilayam, Puttaparthi, where they do a lot of detailed analysis of Swami's discourses, message. We have had the opportunity of having this first-hand experience in the program Pragati Patham very recently. So it is indeed a good fortune, our all of our good fortune, to listen to Brother Ameya Deshpande regarding what does Swami want from us. Over to Brother Ameya.
Offering our loving pranams at the lotus feet of our ever-present Swami. Most revered elders, dear brothers and sisters, a loving Sairam to all of you. At the outset, I take this opportunity to convey Swami's blessings on all your families for a good health, and may you all be mentally and physically and spiritually safe and sound in these challenging times. Let us all pray to Swami to give his blessings on all of those doctors and nurses and everybody who is fighting so much so that we can lead a comfortable life. I'm very, very happy to be with you all this evening, and I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate each and every one of you for having joined in the satsang on a Saturday evening. I know we are all in semi-lockdown, and definitely Karnataka is doing better than all other states. So I'm sure that you can go out at this time and you can do many other things. But you have chosen to be here in this satsang. So many congratulations for that. And that shows how dedicated you are to the spiritual path and to our Swami. I also take this opportunity to thank all the office bearers and the leaders and the coordinators of the youth group in Karnataka who do a fantastic job month after month, year after year. Personally, I am inspired a lot by all of you who I have met from time to time. And I have a unique privilege to associate myself with the Bangalore Youth Group, the Karnataka Youth Group from time to time since I was a Sevadal. So, the very wonderful topic that has been given for our discussion today, and I promise that it will be a discussion. Of course, I would like to also take this opportunity to apologize for I can understand Kannada, but I can't speak Kannada. And I wish I could speak to you all in Kannada, which would be, closer to your heart. But nevertheless, amongst all Sai brothers and sisters and all Sai family members, it is the language of the heart. So I will be speaking from the language of the heart. So the topic for discussion today is, what does Swami expect from us? So this was a question that Swami was once asked. One of the elder senior devotees of Swami, he had asked Swami this question. He said, Swami, what is the role of the Satya Sai organization in your divine mission? Right? The question was, what is the role of the Satya Sai organization in your divine mission? And therefore, what is our role in your divine mission? And the answer that Swami gave, Swami said, the Satya Sai organization has no role to play in my mission at all. Now, this is a very, it kind of comes as a shock to all of us. Huh? No role at all? Isn't it? Because we all think that, the organization and the central trust and all of these institutions, this is what Swami has set up during his avatarhood. But that is, if you only consider that Satya Sai Baba is this 5'3" this figure this picture which is behind me. If you consider that Satya Sai Baba is only that, but Swami has always told us that he is not this 5'3" figure that we see. He is the cosmic controller of the entire universe, the creator of the entire universe. He is the Brahmanda Nayak. So if you look, what will be the role of the Satya Sai mission in the entire universe? Absolutely minuscule. The organization has been around only for 60, maybe 70 years at max. So what is the role that this organization is going to play, and for that matter, we are going to play? But what Swami said after that is even more important. Swami said, the Satya Sai organization doesn't have a role in my mission, but I have a role in the Satya Sai organization, and this Satya Sai organization has to play a very important role in your life. So, more than what Swami expects from us, let us see what we should have expectations from Swami, right? So that we will be able to bring him into our lives. And I thought that the better discussion for today will be, what is it that I can expect from Swami? How to make Swami an integral part of our life? And so, with this introduction, I would like to start with the story. It's a very interesting story. There was an old man. He was on his deathbed. He was about to die. And he had 3 sons. And his entire property, what all he had earned in his life, came to a total of 19 camels. So his entire life's property was 19 camels. And so while he was on his deathbed, he asked all his 3 sons to come, and he said, see, I am now going to die, and I have divided my property into, I have divided amongst all of you, the 3 brothers. So you all, without fighting, please take this property and live a happy life. It is enough for all the 3 of you. So saying, he passed away. And so he had left behind a will, in which they will write the details of the property. So when the 3 brothers, they opened the will, and obviously, the sons are more interested in how much they are going to get and what father has left behind. And so the will, it said that there are 19 camels, and how it is going to be divided amongst the three brothers is a very interesting, fashion. The first son, the eldest son, will get half of the property. The second son will get 1/4 of the property, and the third son will get 1/5 of the property. That is how it was written in the particular will. They all started to wonder now how to divide this 19 camels into these properties. If you look at it, no, what is half of 19? 9.5. 9.5 camels to the first son. What is 1/4 of 19? Another, strange number, 4.75, like that, some number. How to divide 19 into 4.75? And 1/5 is also some such crazy kind of proportion. So they were all wondering, and as usual, it started it first started into a discussion, and very soon it transformed into a quarrel, and all the three brothers started to quarrel. Everybody started saying, father loved me the most, and therefore that extra, should come to me, etc., etc. And a big quarrel. And, as usual, whenever there is a quarrel, all the neighbors will like to come and watch because, free ka entertainment, it is free entertainment for everybody. So all the people came, and then, the elders of the village came, excuse me, and they all started asking, what is the problem, etc. And nobody knew how to solve this problem. There's a very strange predicament. Just then, a wise man was walking that way near the village, and he heard this big, quarrel and discussion. And so he went and he asked, what is the problem? And, somebody explained to him that, see, what is the problem? The father has died. He has given 19 camels to his three sons, and he has told that it should be divided into half, 1/4 and 1/5. And now they have no clue how it has to be divided. And therefore, they are all quarreling over it. So this wise man, he had come with one camel, with his own camel. So he said, oh, it's a very simple division that you can do. You do one thing, you take this one camel of mine and you add it to your 19 camels. Okay. So, while everybody is only thinking of taking, this man is thinking of giving. So everybody was okay. Yes. So let us add this one camel to the 19 camels. So total number of camels now are 20. He said, now you divide it amongst yourselves, amongst the three brothers. So what is half of 20? 10. So the eldest son, he took 10 camels. What is 1/4 of 20? 5. So the second son took 5 camels. What is 1/5 of 20? 4. So the third son took 4 camels. And so 10 plus 5 plus 4 is 19. And this man took away his one camel and he went away from there. So this 19 camels was divided into 1/2, 1/4 and 1/5, exactly as the father wanted. So these 19 camels were divided, and with that one camel, this whole division process was done. Now, when this story was once told in Swami's presence, Swami was there, and the story was told in Swami's presence, and Swami, he loved the story. And after the whole speech got over, he was talking to all the students, and so he asked the students, so what did you like in today's speech? And so they all said, Swami, that camel story was very good. And then Swami said, so what did you learn from the camel story? And so then they said, Swami, how beautifully it got divided, the whole camel, all the 4 camel, the 19 camels got divided into amongst the 3 brothers very nicely. And then Swami said, no, that is not the moral of the story. The moral of the story is not about how the 19 camels were divided, but how this one camel, the one camel which this wise man brought, how it made or gave meaning to the 19 camels. That is the most important message. And that one camel in our life is God's presence in our life. That one stands for God. So let us just contemplate on the story a little bit. See, in our lives, whatever we have, all our degrees, all our achievements, whatever we have, no, is equivalent to these 19 camels. All our properties, so our house, our job, status, position, all that is 19 camels. Okay, these 19 camels, they cannot give us peace and prosperity in our life. They cannot give us that happiness that we are looking in our life. Why? Because they will only cause such kind of confusion. Who is going, what belongs to whom? This will be the confusion. But when we add this one camel to all the 19 camels, it gives meaning to the 19 camels in our life. Exactly in the same way, when we add God into our lives, suddenly everything becomes meaningful. See, that is the message that Swami has been giving to us, that we don't have to run away from anything. We don't have to give up anything. Swami, in fact, tells, go ahead and definitely you should do very well in your academic life. You should do very well in your professional life. Work very hard, get all the promotion, earn all the wealth in a righteous way. But all of that wealth and position and status, it has meaning only if there is God in our life. Otherwise, that same wealth, that same position, that same status that we have in our life will only cause us more and more problems and confusion and chaos in our life. So that is what I wanted to share. What Swami expects from us is nothing much but to add him in our life. Let us make him the center of our life and not just a part of our life. So that is what, in very, very simple terms, is what I wanted to share. And so now the most important question is, I know that I am supposed to add God in my life, right? I am supposed to add him to everything. Whether it is my academic pursuit, whether it is my professional pursuit, my personal life, my family life, whatever it is, let me add God into. In fact, adding God into our life is like adding salt in our meals. No, we may have so many meals. I'm sure it is 7:30 now, and so therefore, everybody is getting ready for dinner. Just imagine if we are having the grandest of grand food. Bangalore is famous for bisi bele bath. No, or Karnataka is famous. So just imagine you are having Mysore masala dosa. You are having all sorts of delicacies. But imagine if there is no salt in your food at all. Will it be of any taste? Right? In everything that we eat, we'll have to add this salt. Unless we add the salt in this food, the food is tasteless. Similarly, without God in our life, everything else is tasteless in our life. So now the question is, how do we add this God into our life? So the first step that we have to take up is we have to choose God in our life. See, God is always there. He's omnipresent. He's there at every given time in all particular circumstances. But do we choose God? Right? It is like saying that there is internet. Right? Internet is there always. But do you switch on your mobile data? Do you switch on the Wi-Fi? Right? Only when you choose to switch it on, then only you can connect. Similarly, only when you choose to switch on that button, then only we can get access to God in our life. So how do we do that? I'm reminded of a beautiful incident that happened when I was in primary school. In fact, in higher secondary school, I was in my 8th class. The year was 1993, and Swami had called all the students to distribute some, what used to happen in fact, all through Swami's life is, so many devotees will come and offer something to Swami. What Swami will do is he will keep it and then eventually he will redistribute it to someone, mostly what will happen is he will get something and he will give it to students, or he will give it to Bal Vikas children, or he will give it to youth. For example, we all know how Swami distributed over 900 robes that Swami used to wear. The robe he distributed to all the district presidents of the country. So because some devotee will come and say, Swami, please take a robe. Like that, thousands of devotees will be giving Swami something. Swami will take it and then he will give it to whoever the deserved person or whom he feels it should be given. So in those days also what used to happen is so many something or some items will be given to Bhagwan, will be offered to Swami. So on that particular day when Swami had called us to Purnachandra Auditorium, Swami was distributing all sorts of toiletries with us. Okay. So the toiletries means, there will be shampoo, there will be toothpaste, there will be soap, different types of soap, all assorted items. So there will be various things like including very expensive perfumes, deodorants, roll-ons, you name it and it was there. Now what was happening is everybody was getting, different items. Everybody was not getting the same item because it was all assorted. So what Swami was doing is we were all sitting in lines. Swami will come in the line and there will be a big basket around, behind him. Somebody will be holding the basket. Swami will just simply put his hand and whatever comes in his hand, he will give. So I remember that that day I got a soap. I got a Camay soap. So Swami gave it, So now the moment Swami gives, more important than what Swami gives us is what Swami gave my friend, isn't it? So what I am sitting and doing over there and all of us are doing is the moment we will see, oh, what did I get? Oh, I got this soap. And then immediately I will ask my friend, hey, what you got? Yeah. Hey, what that fellow got? What this fellow got? So this discussion is going on, right? And I'll explain to you the inner significance of this. Of course, it is all happening quietly. So we are just whispering, it's going on like that. And everybody is, so some boys are, one of my friends, he got a very posh perfume. So he's showing from there, I got a perfume, man, like that. Okay. And I'm saying, I got only soap here. All this kind of discussion is going on. What we had not noticed is that Swami had finished the distribution and slowly Swami had gone onto the stage, the Purnachandra Auditorium stage. He's standing on the stage and he's watching us. Okay. So it took a few seconds for us to notice that Swami had actually gone onto the stage. So the moment Swami went onto the stage and the moment we got to know that Swami is there, suddenly there was a hush, and suddenly shh, like that, everybody kept quiet and we all looked at Swami. So the moment we looked at Swami, Swami asked from there, Andariki Vochinda means in Telugu he asked, he said, all of you have got, did you receive? And all of us, in one unison, one united tone, all of us said, yes, Swami, all of us have got. And then there was about a few seconds of silence, after which, Swami asked a beautiful question, a very, very serious and poignant question. Swami said, now boys, tell me, who wants me? Just that is the question that Swami asked. Who wants me? He asked this question and he just went backstage and he retired into his room. And of course, at that moment, we were small boys. We could not realize the significance of what Swami had asked. But even to this day, I still remember and I keep asking myself this question. See, in our life, this is the inner significance of this story. In our life, whatever we get from Swami is Swami's prasadam to us, right? We don't consider it as prasadam, but it is actually indeed Swami's prasadam to us. But what do we do when we get this prasadam? The first thing we do is we want to compare what we have gone with what our own friends or our own colleagues, what they have got, forgetting that actually whatever we have and whatever that person has is Swami's prasadam. Swami knows exactly what is to be given, right? But we forget that and we all the time think about, Arey yaar, how did he get that? Why did he get that? And all the time we're cribbing and crying. All the time we're having this dissatisfaction or we are having this jubilation that, see, I got this and that fellow got only that much. We are forgetting all the time that it is actually Swami who has given us this opportunity, this prasadam, whatever. So whether it is our jobs, whether it is our relationship, whether it's our children, our parents, our spouse, whatever we have in this world is Swami's prasadam to us. If you are able to keep that in mind, that is the first part. But more important than that is, for that Swami who has given us all of this, Swami is all the time asking us this question. Now tell me, who wants me? See, the God, the Lord, who has given us everything in our life, are we asking for Him? Right? Do that when I ask this question, no, are we ready to add God into our lives? See, that is the choice that we have to make. See, once we have Swami in our life, automatically everything else will come, isn't it? Because He is only giving us everything. He is giving us our job. He is giving us our house. He is giving us our, status, all the trials and tribulations, joys and sorrows, pains and pleasures, everything He is giving us. So let us say that all of us, we decide that yes, I am going to choose God. Yes, I am going to add God in our life. So now, what is the meaning of adding God in our life? That is the next question, right? Let us try and understand. Let us go deeper into this understanding of what does it mean that I should add God into my life, right? And to have that focus on Swami. So let me tell you another incident, because all of these stories with Swami are so beautiful and they are so full of meaning. They are so enriched with wisdom and knowledge. So let me share with you another incident that happened with one of our elder brothers. So this elder brother, he used to do service for Swami. That is, he was on personal duty with Bhagwan in his Prashanti Nilayam. And on one occasion, this brother, he was a very, very avid photographer. Though he would always see that all those who were close to Bhagwan would always have a camera. And so when he became close to Swami and he started doing, his personal service, he didn't have a camera, but he always dreamt of having a camera. So one day, when he was cleaning up Swami's room, Swami came down over there and Swami pointed at a particular, a new box that had come. And Swami said, "Hey, what is that box? What is there in that box?" So this boy went and opened the box, and inside the box was a brand new camera, right? So, in those days, maybe probably some of you may not even remember those days when there used to be that XLR camera, with the big zoom lens and big body and all that. So that was there in full packaged, brand new. Some devotee, I think, must have come and offered it to Swami. So Swami said, what is that? So, the whole box was removed. And this brother, in his mind, he was thinking, this is such a nice camera. And so Swami started telling, open it, show me. So what he did was he opened it and he started putting the camera, the lens into the body and the flash and everything. He started mounting, and then he loaded the roll. And so Swami was sitting on the chair and, he is pointing the whole lens at Swami. And Swami is also, as he is putting, Swami, like a small child, Swami is also playing with the lens, he's turning around the lens and all that. So, and then Swami is pressing the different, there used to be so many knobs. Probably some of you have seen those days what that camera was, you'll know. So many things you have to do before, you finally click. Because they were right now, these days we are so lucky. All we need to do is take our, smartphones and simply click and the camera does the remaining. But in those days, you had to manually do everything. So Swami, he was playing around with it and suddenly he pressed that trigger button, the main clicking button. And, it went off. The camera went off as if the first photo was taken. And so the flash, it flashed into Swami's face. And immediately Swami said, "Hey, what happened? What did I do?" Like a small child. So that brother said, "Nothing, Swami. You just, you inaugurated the camera." Like that he mentioned. And Swami said, "Very good, very good. Keep this. You keep the camera. You wanted camera, no? You keep the camera with you." So this brother was so thrilled, that finally I'm having a camera, something that I have always dreamt about. And so then Swami said, "See, take all good pictures, take sceneries, and you should take flowers and, take all nature photos and all that." So this brother, whenever he would get a break from, serving inside, he will come out and he will go to a tree and the morning dew drops and all that. He would click early morning sunrise, then evening sunset, all of that he took. So like that, he finished the entire roll. In those days, one roll used to have 36 pictures. And in those days, there was the good developing wouldn't happen in Parthi, in Prashanti. You had to send the roll to Bangalore. for developing. So with one of the brothers, he sent the roll for developing. So a couple of days later, the entire roll, well developed, all photographs came. And so the elder brother who was along with him, he first saw all his photographs. He had just gone through the photographs, and with a smile on his face, he said, "See your photography skills, how good they are." And so this brother, he thought, "Oh God, what happened? Why is this elder brother talking like this?" So he took the photographs and he started going through each and every photo. Okay. One by one, he started going through every photo, and oh God, every photo was horrible. Okay, there was one photo was out of focus, one photo was black, one photo was too much, brightness, the exposure level and, aperture and so many things. Every photo was goofed up. Not all photos were flop. Okay, so now he's going through every photo. So if you know what used to happen is when you take from 1 to 36, no, when it comes to you, it will come as 36, 35, 34, 33, 32, like that the photos will be put because that is how it will be developed. So he is going from 36, 35, 34, 33, like that. He's coming down and he's thinking, oh God, not even one photo is good. Finally, he comes to the last photograph, which was in fact the first photo that was taken. And if you recollect, the first photo was clicked by Swami. Do you know that was the only photograph that was absolutely perfect in every way? And this brother was shocked because Swami had simply played with all the lens and he was turning everything here, there and all that and simply had pressed a button as if he was playing. But finally, the only photograph which was completely perfect was the first photograph. And this brother, when he was narrating to us the story, he said, the lesson that he learned, it is a beautiful lesson that he learned in his life. He said, if as long as God is the focus of your life, everything is clear. When the world becomes the focus of your life, everything becomes blur. Everything becomes a flop as long as world is the focus of your life. So the question now is, I need to focus on Swami. So the one question that will arise from this is, if I focus on Swami, then how will I look after my family? How will I do because constantly you're telling me that I should look after, I should focus on Swami, which means I should be doing bhajans, I should be doing seva, I should be doing study circle. Are yaar, in lockdown period, you can imagine because anyway we have to sit at home. But tomorrow when the world opens up, there is something called entertainment here. I have to go, I have to, take my family outside. I want to enjoy life. Yes, by all means you can do that. And yet you can have focus on Swami. How? By adding Swami to everything in our lives. And therefore, what I wanted to share with you is this wonderful, small, simple formula for how to add and how to make Swami as the focus of our lives. It doesn't mean that we have to give up anything else. It doesn't mean that we have to give up the enjoyments or our work or our ambitions, or whatever we wanted to, our desires. We don't have to give up. All we need to do is every desire that we have got, every thought, every word, just add Swami into it. And let me tell you how. And the simple, the formula for that is what Swami himself says is embedded in his own name. If you look at his name, very short and sweet name, S-A-I, Sai. Swami would always say, Sai means see always inside. See always inside. Right? Because as long as you look outside, there will be chaos and confusion. Right? The moment you see inside, you will have complete clarity in whatever we want. So the formula is see always inside. Now what we will do is, in order to make it a formula for our life, let us just turn the whole word upside down, which is IAS. Okay, IAS is obviously means Indian Administrative Service, but here the acronym for IAS will be our formula for how to make Swami the focus of our lives. And what is that? the first stage, the first step that we have to take, and that is intention. Intent. Okay. What should be our intention towards whatever we do in life? Let us always keep a pure intention with whatever we do in life, right? As long as there is purity of intention, everything else is taken care of. So let me, share once again a couple of instances over here. Way back in the 1940s, maybe in the 40s or 50s, before the Prashanti Nilayam had come into existence. So the Prashanti Nilayam came in 1950. It was inaugurated on 23rd of November, Swami's birthday in 1950. Prior to that, Swami used to live in what is called Patha Mandiram, right? So some of you who have come to Prashanti Nilayam and Puttaparthi, if you come, down towards the village of Puttaparthi, you will find what is called as the Pedda Venkama Raju Kalyana Mandapam, which used to be the Patha Mandiram. It was a tin shed, and from there, Swami moved into the Prashanti Nilayam. So back in those days, in the 1940s, in the early 50s, so many, handful of devotees, there were hardly any devotees, just a handful, 50, 60, maximum 100 people. So that was the time when Swami's glory was beginning to spread, and people from, long distances and villages and from Mysore and Bangalore and Chennai, all of these Hyderabad people, you would come. So one lady, one very poor lady, she had come for one of the birthday celebrations. And she noticed that, all the birthday celebrations, the ladies were playing a major role in the birthday celebrations when it came, for all the hundreds of devotees who would have come, and whether it was cooking or whether it's rangoli decoration or whether it is flower buntings, and all of that was being done by ladies. Now this lady, she did not have any skill because she was completely uneducated. She was illiterate, absolutely no skill. So when she would want to go and work somewhere, people would say, no, you go somewhere else and work. You get involved in something else, because they found out that this lady doesn't have any skill. She doesn't have even basic skills. So she felt very bad. So one evening, when she was struggling to help in some, odd jobs, Swami came over there, and she simply looked at Swami, and with tears in her eyes, she said, Swami, I am not good at anything, Swami. I don't have any talent. See, all of these ladies are doing so much for you. I am not able to do anything for you. And then Swami said, I don't want you to do anything for me. I have come to do everything for you. You don't have to do anything for me. See, once again, expectation. What does Swami expect from us? Nothing. We have to know what to expect from Swami, right? So this lady was dumbstruck when she heard Swami tell this. What is it that Swami is telling? See, in your village, you grow groundnuts, kadlekai. No, kadlekai. Is it? I'm sure it is called kadlekai in Kannada, because I remember when from my Bangalore days. So it is. So Swami is telling you grow kadlekai, in your village. You give me a few kadlekai. That is enough. No, so that is what Swami said, I want from you. This lady, she was so thrilled, and needless to say, from that year onwards, every year she would come once to Prashanti Nilayam, okay, and she would bring for Swami groundnuts, okay. So now, cut to 1997, one of the elder brothers who was once again doing duty, he shared this instance with us, that one day when Swami finished darshan, right? So now we are in 90s, okay? This is the time when Swami is a huge personality. I mean, needless to say, he is God, he's well established, right? His glory, thousands and millions of people are coming to him. One evening, after Swami was returning back from darshan, these brothers, they would stand at the gate and they would simply look at Swami. What Swami would do is, when he is returning back, he will be having so many letters in his hand. So sometimes what he will do is, he will call the boys, he will simply call them and he will give the letters. Now, that evening, when Swami was returning back from the mandir, this boy noticed, this one of the brothers, he noticed that Swami was having a bag in his hand. In his right hand, there was a bag, and in the left hand, there were letters. So this is a very intriguing, because nobody, Swami never carries back like that some bag. So he was wondering, what is this? What is this bag? What does it contain? Because, immediately that is what we all want to know. What is there in that bag? So Swami calls him, and instead of giving him the bag, Swami gives him the letters. And Swami holds on to the bag, as if it is his personal property. So now this brother is even more intrigued. He is more mystified. He's wondering what is there in the bag, and that bag Swami takes to his room. And in the afternoon, the next day afternoon, when Swami comes down from his room, he brings the bag along with him. All of, just some 3 or 4 brothers are there. Swami tells, come, all of you come. I brought something for you. And he opens this bag, and out of that comes this kadlekai, So he brings out this groundnut with its shells, the groundnut with the shell. And Swami starts to open it, and he's distributing it to all the boys who are sitting over there. And the brothers, 3 of them were there. They were telling that Swami was eating with so much relish that those, groundnuts, they had never seen Swami eating with so much relish. And it looked like a very normal, there was nothing great. It was not like some, spicy or some salted kadlekai or anything like that. It was just normal groundnuts. So they were wondering, what is the secret behind this groundnut? And it so happened, this brother, when he was describing it, it was such a beautiful thing. He was telling that, Swami was opening the shell, and the shell was falling on Swami's robe. And so this brother, he was trying to clean that because he did not want Swami's robe to be dirty. And Swami is telling, hey, leave that, let it fall, no problem. You eat this, like that. So it was like a picnic. And so everybody was very intrigued with who is this devotee who has given these groundnuts to Swami. And after they finished, Swami said, hey, just whatever, remaining, whatever groundnut is there, just put it into another bowl, because this bag, I have to give it back to the devotee. So then they asked Swami, who is this? And then Swami narrated this incident. This entire incident was narrated by Swami to them, that it was this lady who was not good in anything. Swami had told her, if you bring me this kadlekai, I will accept it. Right? So this lady, Swami was telling that for the last 40 years, okay, this lady has every year, she will bring this kadlekai in this bag only, because this lady doesn't have any other bag. She will bring it in this bag only. This bag was so dirty, okay, but that is the one bag that she had which was worthwhile to give it to Swami. Swami said, now I have to go back. When I go back in the evening, I have to find out where she is sitting. Where she is sitting, so that I can give this bag back to her, so that next year when she comes, she will bring this groundnuts in this bag. Okay, just imagine that intention was there. See, we don't have to do something big for Swami. We don't have to do anything big for this world. All we have to have is that pure intention of doing something for somebody. And that is why I say that I stands for that intention. And that intention also has another. So how do we know whether we are doing something for ourselves or for somebody else? The simple formula for that Swami always gives us is J-O-Y, joy. If you want joy in our life, simply follow joy. What is that? Jesus first, others next, yourself last. The intention must be please God, please others, please yourself last. See, when we talk about yourself, it is not the Atmana. We are not talking about that ultimate self. We are talking about this body mind, because that is where our problem comes. Always we are thinking about selfishness. We are always thinking, what will I get out of this? Right? Always our intention behind doing anything, whether it's our job, whether it is our relationships, whether it is money, even sometimes whether it is joining Satya Sai organization, even joining a spiritual organization, the first question is, what is in it for me? Fair question, no doubt about it. But eventually, can I turn it around and say, why am I joining this organization? What can I give to this organization? Right? So Jesus first, others next, yourself right. If that is the intention, that I want to do something for Swami, whatever it is, however negligible and insignificant it is, it will reach him. Right? So that is I. I am reminded of another incident, very beautiful incident. In fact, this happened very, very recently, and I'd like to share that with you. One of my classmates, now he's in London, and so he narrated this. He, in fact, sent me this in a message, and it is a beautiful incident that happened. Very recently, just less than a month ago, on June 6th, it happened. Uh, as you know, that UK is one of the most affected countries by this COVID-19. And so my classmate, my brother, Sai brother, he's over there and he's been in lockdown. And while he was here, when we were all together in the college, he was one of the most enthusiastic boys when it came to seva. Grama seva or any other prasadam distribution. He was always, number one. He was always the first boy there because he loved to do seva. So he was just thinking, in his mind, what is this, Swami? This is the time when I want to do seva, when I should be doing seva, but I'm not allowed to do seva because, you're not supposed to get out of the house. What can I do, Swami? What can I do? Now he was living in an apartment and his neighbor was a nurse who was working in one of the hospitals. And she was a white woman. And he noticed that this lady would come back very late in the nights and she was doing like 36 hours, 48 hours, kind of duty. So he said, I don't know what else to do, Swami. Maybe, so one evening what he did is, he and his wife, they prepared some sambar rice because, they thought that is the best thing that they can give her. And so they put it into one box. They put it into one, our dabba. They put it into a dabba and they left that dabba outside her room with a small note saying, if you please like this, we would love to help you. Please let us know if, you're okay with this. We would like to give you some food that we are having. So he left that, the dabba there. And next morning, and he would hardly actually see her because she'll come so late. She will go so early in the morning. Her times are so erratic. So next day when he was going to, when he came out of his room, his house, he found that there was a dabba over there and there were 2 chocolates inside that. And it was written over there, thank you very much. One note which he had written, the nurse had written, saying that thank you very much, but I am not used to this kind of spicy food. So maybe once or twice a week will be enough. Okay. So this brother, he thought, oh God, what a stupid thing to do. They are not at all used to our spicy sambar and all that. And I gave her, but so good of her, so nice of her that she had, Papam written that, maybe once a week, twice a week is enough. It got over and a few weeks passed by, few weeks in the sense, few days passed by. One day, one morning, he heard his doorbell ring. And so when he opened, it was this nurse who was standing outside. And this nurse, she was having a small package in her hand. And she said, brother, I would like to give this to you. And so he said, oh, what is it? And then, she had a small rose in her hand. She said, I would like to give this to you and your wife. So he said, why? And he said, do you remember the first time that, you gave this box to me? She said she had had a 48-hour shift. And during her 48-hour shift, she had switched off 16 ventilators, which means she had seen 16 people die in her hospital. And so she was extremely devastated. Just imagine switching off ventilators, seeing people die, in front of you. And, she was very tired and it was in the middle of the night that her shift got over. And she said that she had not eaten properly in an entire day. And she was extremely tired, dejected, destroyed. She had not had food. She was just praying at that moment. She was just praying, oh Jesus, can you show me your presence in my life? Do you exist? Do you know what I am going through? Are you there with us? And she comes back home, and that night she sees this dabba, outside her house. And at that moment, she broke down. She said, I don't know what made you leave that box that night. But that night, I had not eaten. I ate, though, I really cannot digest that kind of food, but I ate that food, and more than what you had given, I knew that there was my Jesus who was looking at me, right? It is a very, very, very small, insignificant dabba, probably a food that it was not even liked by anybody, by that lady, but it was the intention that mattered, right? It is the purity of our intention. See, this is how we can bring God into our life. With whatever we do, let us bring purity in our intention. Those that stands for I. Let me go to the next one, and that is A. So that intention must get converted into action, right? It is not enough if you just have purity of intention. That intention must get transformed into action, right? And that action must happen with 100% dedication. So I stands for intention, A stands for action. And let me share one instance with you on how this should be done with 100% dedication. It's a very interesting incident that happened once again with one of the elder brothers, and I've personally means he has told me this personally, and he has not told too many people this incident. So this was a brother. He was a mandir singer over here, and he had sung for many years, and eventually, as that Maya, Swami's Maya, and whatever the Maya that you see around, it had got to him. And eventually he left Prashanti Nilayam because he felt that he was very talented and his talents were not acknowledged by Puttaparthi and even for that matter by Swami. Because he felt that he was much smarter, he was far more intelligent. I'll just wait for that sound to. Yes. So he was far more intelligent than what his talents were being utilized over here. And so eventually he went to Bombay, and from Bombay, he got a good job. Eventually he went to Bahrain, and from Bahrain he got his next job in United States. It was a big company called Black and Decker. You must have heard of this company called Black and Decker. And this was in the early 90s, and computerization was slowly taking over. And this boy was a computer expert. Even in those days, he had learned C++. He had learned it here in Prashanti. He was one of the first MTech students who had passed out of the institute. And so he was very good in programming. And so he landed a very good job. And what they wanted to do in this company was they wanted to, there was this whole logistical chain that you have got, supply chain. They wanted to automate it. They wanted to make it electronic. And they found that this entire thing, this entire supply chain was getting stopped, right? The main, what should I say, the loophole or the plug point was at the end, after the whole product is manufactured, the labeling process was a manual process. And that was what was taking time. And it was causing a lot of delay. So this project was given to this brother, and he was told that if you can automate this labeling process. So this brother, he took up that as a challenge, and for 3-4 months, he worked really hard and he automated the labeling process. Okay. And he, obviously, as most of you who are from Karnataka and from Bangalore, you're all in the tech, you are in the tech city. So that, you run thousands of reruns and everything, testing was done and everything was done. And it was working perfectly. And all his bosses and, his bosses' bosses and everybody was coming and, fantastic. On a particular day, this program was to go live. Okay. So the official launch of the program, and everything was perfectly fine. Even for for nearly half an hour before the program launch. He was doing all the testing, and this was like, the moment of his life, right? Uh, he was going to get a huge bonus or whatever. He was telling that this was the ultimate moment of his life, what he was looking forward to. And in about half an hour's time, okay, the program goes live, and in about 15 minutes, his phone starts to go off. It starts to ring. So he picks up the phone, and it is, from the person where the labeling process. There is something wrong. None of the products are getting labeled. Now just imagine 3 months of absolute 24 by 7 kind of work, 1,000 test runs, and everything has happened, and it is just not printing. Okay. And so within a few minutes, as needless to say, but within a few minutes, his boss's boss, everybody is landing up saying, what's happening? Okay, because just imagine, they had removed the manual labeling process. Now products are getting manufactured, and trucks are waiting for these products to go into the trucks and finally get shipped to the respective dealers, and nobody knows where what is supposed to go. Right? Just imagine that predicament. And so everybody shouting, screaming, saying, do something, stop the manufacturing. The manufacturing cannot stop. And so everybody's yelling, and this brother is like, oh my God, he's not able to make out what's going on. And at that moment, he simply told, please, can you give me 10 minutes? Please leave my office. Just give me 10 minutes. Let me think of what's going wrong. Okay. And he said, I had no clue, because everything was absolutely perfect. I have no clue what to do. At that moment, when everybody left, the room, okay, this boy, he simply closed his eyes and he said, Swami, I am a big zero. I know nothing, right? I'm thinking that everything is because of me, but I really have no clue how I'm supposed to overcome this. Okay, this brother's name was Kumar, and Swami would call him by Kumar. And he said, as he closed his eyes and he was intensely praying to Swami, he suddenly hears a sound. He says, Kumar, exactly how Swami would call him, he was hearing Swami's voice. And, he opened his eyes. And then Swami said, Chudra, akkada chudu. Means in Telugu, Swami is saying, see there in that window, those parameters, no? And so he says, something happened to him at that moment. Swami just took over. He said, I simply went, I opened this window, opened that, I changed these parameters. He said, I was absolutely on autopilot for the next 5-10 minutes. He changed all of that. He reran the program. Okay. And 15 minutes later, he gets a call saying, the labeling has started. It is perfect. Right? See, as long as we think that we are doing this, no, whatever action it is, whether it's our personal profession. See, once again, I'll keep coming back to this, that I am not saying that it is only sadhana. Whether it is our personal life, whether it's our professional life, whatever, our private lives, any life, more so our organization life, our life as a Sai youth. See, what will distinguish us between us and any other youth is this: our pure intention and our dedication of any activity that we do. Whether it could be as simple as taking my family out for a dinner, right? Or cooking a beautiful meal for my family. Or it could mean anything else, as long as I'm able to dedicate that action. Swami, I am nothing. Swami, you are everything. So whether it is a dish that I'm preparing, whether it is a project or an assignment or a presentation that I'm making, can I tell myself before Swami, you are going to make this presentation, right? We call upon the power of Swami in our lives, and that is enough to, to give this entire thing to Swami, and then he takes over. And finally, that process is what brings us to the last, which is the S of our life, and that is surrender. The I stood for intention, A stood for action, and S stands for surrender. And surrender of what? Surrender of the fruit of the action that we have going to get. For all the action that we will do, yes, there will be certain failures. Failures meaning failures the way the world sees it. It may not be, because once we have dedicated to Swami and once our intention is pure, there cannot be a failure, right, in our lives. But even if the way the world sees, let us say I have put in my best, I have dedicated everything, and in spite of that, my boss is not happy with my work. All that I need to do is, Swami, I did my best. I am surrendering this to your lotus feet. Swami is our boss. Let us remember that for we Sai youth, we have only one boss, and that is Swami. And our job is to see Swami in all our other bosses. Okay, so let us keep that in our mind. So surrender the fruit of the action, right? And what do we mean by surrender? Right? It's very easy. We have heard this term many times. In fact, this is the core of Bhagavad Gita itself, right? He says, Mahamanusmara Yuddhacha. When Krishna says to Arjuna that you think of me and fight the battle. And he says, Karmanyevadhikaraste mafaleshu kadachana. Right? So that is the core of Bhagavad Gita. So what does the surrender mean? I have heard this term many times, but I don't know what it means. It simply means that whatever happens, whether it is joy or sorrow, whether it is success or failure, whether it is pain or pleasure, right? I will look at it in the same way, right? Surrender, the way I express surrender is in my ability to handle both the dualities in the same manner with calm and composure. I don't lose my cool at all because there is nothing to lose my cool because I am not the one who's doing it. It is the Lord who is going to do it. So if somebody shouts at me, I take it, I take it with all humility. Yes, Swami, I will do better. And we continue. If somebody comes and pats us on our back also, we come, Swami, this is yours. If we are able to have this in our life, and I don't think this is difficult, I'm sure you'll agree with me, dear brothers and sisters, that this is very, very much possible. If our intention is pure, if our action is 100% dedication, and if we are able to surrender this fruit of our action to Swami, we will have success in our lives. And that is what will mean to add God in our life. So I will end over here, and maybe if we have a few questions, then we can maybe have this as a discussion. I hope this was useful to you, and I hope that we will all be able to implement this simple formula of IAS in our lives so that we will be able to see always inside. And when we see always inside, we will find Sai in our hearts. Thank you. Sai Ram.
ಸುಂದರವಾದಂತಹ ಸೆಷನ್ ಆಯಿತು. Thank you so much, brother Amay, once again, for such a wonderful session. So please, if anyone has any question, or this is a golden opportunity, as Brother Kishan was saying, from the Japanese proverb, So the sir is with us, we have to ask a question if we have any. Yeah. So please feel free and ask your questions.
Well, I would simply like to say that I'm not some sir. So the brothers, Brother Venkatesh and Rajshekhar are calling me some sir. So that is rather, it's a little funny for me to hear myself as I'm just a brother. We are all co-travelers. And just so that it is my intention of, asking for some question was, oftentimes what happens is, when we speak, obviously, I will speak what I like to speak, or what has impressed me, or what has made a mark on my life. But that may not be the question, or that may not be the situation that you are going through. So I just want to ensure that this session is more relevant to your lives. To whatever you are going through at this moment, if it is relevant, then that is what we all want, isn't it? We don't want to listen to some speeches. We don't want to be listening to, because that is not the purpose of these sessions. The purpose of this session is, how can I actually implement that in my life, right? So that is why I wanted to open out this for, need not be a question. It could be even just a point, a comment, a suggestion from anybody out there. And if you don't have, that is also perfectly fine. If you have any point that you would like to add, that is also most welcome. I believe that it's important that the youth have to have a discussion, a discussion in ourselves. If we become only passive listeners, surely, it will create some questions. So a question is coming. I think there's a question. Swami comes in
Yes,
our dreams.
yes.
What is the significance of?
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting question. So there are several ways that we can understand. First and foremost, Swami coming in our dream is a great blessing for us. So first and foremost, we should be very, very happy. We should be we should feel very grateful to Swami for just giving us darshan. Now, there are two kinds of dreams. And, this is from what Anil Kumar sir had once asked Swami himself. And though Swami had not told it in these words, this is how Anil Kumar sir often tells. And so I will, and, because Swami had hinted at this. Oftentimes, Swami will come in our dream, but we won't know what Swami has told or what is the significance. It will not have direct relevance to something that is happening in our day-to-day life. So what do we do with such a dream? Oftentimes what we should do is we should write down these dreams, because when Swami comes, it doesn't mean that he is coming exactly to answer our today's question. He could be even coming to answer our tomorrow's question. A situation which has not even arisen in our life, he is giving us an answer even today. So it's better to record that, right? So record it in any which way, whether it is by writing or whether it is simply by, there are some brothers who I know, as soon as they get a Swami's dream, they get up and they simply record it into their phones. They, open a sound recorder and they record whatever has happened. Simply whatever has happened, they keep it there. And constant contemplation on that, right? The answer may not come to you today. Probably the answer will come to you after 10 years, after 20 years, right? But constant contemplation on what is it that you saw. And eventually you will come to know. Swami will give clarity on the dream that you have had. So this is one type where, it is not something direct. It could just be a darshan, or it could be simply some kind of Swami telling something to someone. So you just kind of, take in all of that. Second kind of dream is where Swami is coming and giving you a direct instruction. Now, those instructions, as far as possible, you follow it. Sometimes, often, there are times when some instruction will be for somebody else. Okay, Swami will come and tell you that that person should do something, or he will, and this is very, very common. What typically you can do in such kind of circumstances is you call up that person. If you know who that person is, you call up and merely tell him that, right? Don't try to make it like you should be doing this, because you are only a messenger. Remember, you're like a postman, right? Why Swami is coming and telling you is simply because he wants you to deliver that letter. So simply deliver that letter, right? We don't know what impact it is going to happen in his life. For all you know, at that moment, that may not be something that is relevant to his life. For him also, after 10 years, he will come to know its significance. So just simply play the role of a postman, right? But I think constant contemplation on, on the dream that you have got is something that we can always do. And eventually, in times to come, because remember, God is beyond time, right? We think we have this small little, our own bubble of 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year. But when Swami walks into our life, no, it is for janmas, it is for several lifetimes, right? So we don't know at what level he is, and that is why it is important to contemplate on it. So if you pray, you will surely get to know what is the meaning of that dream. So I think there are some more questions, but they are just flashing. So maybe if Brother Venkatesh or someone can pick up any question.
Next question is that many a times when we are unable to take decisions, we take chits and put them in front of Swami's pick and let him decide. Is that correct? Is that correct to do? Sairam.
Very nice question. Very beautiful question, in fact. Remember one thing, is whatever sadhana we do, no, like once again, intention. If the intention is pure and our action is dedicated, it reaches Swami, right? Because we just like we discussed in this satsang, isn't it? It's not about whether something is correct or not. However, I'd like to bring to your notice that remember one thing. Once we have our faith in a particular kind of sadhana, then let us hold on to it with all our, especially with these things called chits. That is, once we put our complete faith in that Swami is going to talk to me through this chit, right? That's it. Then whatever comes, let me follow it. It should not happen that, actually I want to do this, and that's what happens, right? To us, it happens to me also. That's why I gave up this chit, because I have something in my mind, okay, that let's say, I want to, let's say, go on a vacation. So I'm choosing which destination to go. I'm not able to decide. So, simple. I'm giving you a stupid example, but I take this, that I don't know whether to go to Ooty or let's say Kodaikanal. Okay. Or I don't know whether to go to Madikeri. Let's take a Karnataka example. So I don't know whether to go to Madikeri or I should go to Ooty. So I put chit. Actually, in my mind, I want to go to Madikeri. Okay. And then Ooty comes. Now I am like, Swami, Ooty, huh? Actually, I want to go to Madikeri. I'll try best of 3. Let me see, 2 out of 3 times which one will come, right? And so we do all this kind of play, and that is not going to work, because you know what? The moment you start playing with that sadhana also starts playing with you, right? That chick, the Swami will also say, you playing with me, I'll also play with you then, right? And so we will start getting more and more confused. But if you are able to hold on to that and come what may, hold on to that saying, this is how Swami is talking to me. Hold on to it, and you will, once again, intention is pure, our action is dedicated, surrender the fruit, and we are through. Right? So that is the answer to that question. In my opinion, just stick on to whatever sadhana you're doing, whether it's chit picking, but hold on to that and never leave it, whatever happens. And you will have beautiful experiences coming. I'm sure you already have good experiences. Yes.
Thank you for that wonderful answer. The next question we have is pretty much, I think, a primordial question which every one of us have at some point of that, though I try to surrender, as you said, in personal life and professional life, again, I end up taking tension, pressure, forget that Swami is there for us. How do we get into that mode to believe our Swami is there and practice it? Sairam.
So I think it's once again a beautiful question, and something which is very practical. It is all about practice. See, let me tell you that it's not going to come overnight. These kind of things in fact, nothing happens overnight. Unfortunately, today, this generation of ours, we are stuck in this world of instant gratification. Everything, we don't even wait for the second tick to come on WhatsApp, right? I mean, we are so impatient with our results. Unfortunately, Rome was not built in one day. Bangalore was not built in one day. Nothing gets built in a day it requires practice. And so what we need to do is we need to put focus on, let us say, so you may say that, I'm able to do it for 1 hour in a day. I'm not able to do it for 24 hours. Perfect. Absolutely fine. Now this 1 hour, right? Can you make it into 1.5 hours? So you focus and you tell yourself that, what, this is what I do, and let me share with you. So let me tell you like a personal example. I wanted to start waking up early in the morning. Okay. I used to do that during college days, and then eventually when my PhD started, it used to be late nights, and the timetable kind of pretty much got all over the place. And eventually this waking up early in the morning went out of my system. I wanted to actually get up at 5:15, and just wouldn't happen. And I would get up at 6:15, 6:30, and then every day I'll say, "Arey yaar, I wanted to get up today," kind of a thing. Eventually, what I started doing was, what? Why am I trying to get up at 5:15? Let me get up at 5:45. Okay, 5:50. Let me get up. See, I usually get up at 6:15, 6:30. Let me try getting up half an hour before. So I started getting up at 6. And that also was a Herculean task in the beginning. But what I started doing is I started doing it every alternate day. right? So it's a small steps that I started taking. From 6, I moved it to 550. From 550, I've moved it to 545. Today, I can confidently tell you that for the past 1 year, from last year, February onwards, I have started waking up at 5:18. Okay, my alarm, if I can show you, my alarm is 5:18. I wanted to get up at 5:15, okay, about 3 years ago. And over the 3 years, I've eventually reached a time when I'm now able to wake up every single day, irrespective of time, irrespective of the time I'm sleeping. I'm able to wake up at 5:18. And what I intend to do is every 15 days, 2 minutes, I will keep taking it, from 5:18, I'll make it 5:17, 5:16, 5:15, and then eventually I'll keep making it, up to 5 o'clock or even 4:45. Right? So I think it's all about practice. It's all about taking those small little steps. So yes, tension will be there. In fact, if you overcome completely your tension, if you're completely surrendered, then you're a saint. Right? You don't need Swami, you don't need the Satisai organization. You are verily a saint. So it is not going to happen overnight. But once again, is there intention? Is the intent there and is the action there? So try and let's say practice, let me give you a simple example. Try and do this, Swami. Today, I will not talk ill about others or I will not take tension. Today is Thursday, so let us assume that it's a Thursday. On Thursday, I will not take tension. Okay, come what may, let me try not to take tension. And so every hour, right, either I keep on my phone, I keep a reminder that, which says something like, just keep a reminder for yourself. Swami says, take no tension. Okay, no tension. So keep reminding yourself every hour that, when your phone buzzes, you look at it and you or there are some beautiful apps that you get these days, which just goes like, there's a gong, there's like a temple bell, which just goes tung randomly during the day. What we should ideally be doing is there should be a bell ringing in our head constantly, tung Swami. And for that 5 seconds in the middle of your day, I am sure, irrespective of whatever you're doing, right? Whether as long as you're not in a meeting or you're not sitting in front of your boss, but if the bell goes, just for 5 seconds, close your eyes, bring a smile on your face and just say, Swami, I'm not taking tension today. Everything is yours. 5 seconds. Then go back to work, right? You know what will happen? Tremendous kind of things will start happening in your life. You will come to know that there will be no tension in your life slowly. So what I'm trying to say is don't try to make quantum leaps. What we try to do is, from tomorrow onwards, I'm not going to have any tension. No, don't try to do that. Try to say no tension in this next 1 hour. No tension on Thursdays. No tension on Saturday, Sundays. Okay, you said that we take a lot of tension work-wise, right? Can you take this challenge for yourself? The moment you leave office on Friday evening, from then onwards, till you reach Monday morning, you are not going to have any tension, right? So whatever you are going to think, even if some situation arises, Swami, you are looking after this. You are looking after this. You are looking after this, and bring a smile on your face. Right. So I think keep setting yourself these small challenges and you will start, it will be a positive feedback loop, right? Which will keep giving you these positive kind of experiences. And from that, you will be able to overcome. So that would be my answer to my suggestion.
Thank you so much for the wonderful daily tips, which I'm sure is going to help all of us in maintaining our connection with Swami. Thank you, brother, for that. One more question, with your permission.
Shall we take this as the last? Because I guess everybody else will want to be going for dinner, and it's already 8:40. So
sure. We try to share many videos, many messages or links on social media networks related to spirituality and related to Swami, but hardly get a response on that. Whereas on worldly things like jokes or something like that, we get a lot of good response, there is a lot of enthusiasm. How should we move forward? In this aspect.
Oh, if brother, you have asked, whoever has asked that question has asked $1 million question, because that's what we, Radio Sai, and we keep thinking about how to get more people to watch good videos. But let's congratulate ourselves for it, because, world, that is what the world is. It is attractive. It is attractive to the senses. So the world is going to be pulled. You are going to get 1 million views and 10 million views for all sorts of other things. We are not, the spiritual path is not an attractive path for the senses. See, let us understand that. See, that is why the world, why do you think people are not coming to the spiritual path? Because it's not attractive to the senses, right? But we are a set of community. We are Sai youth. For us, we know that what is attractive to the senses is not useful to the heart. What is attractive to the senses is not good for the mind. Right? For us, we don't want to see always outside. We always want to see inside. And that is a path which is very, very few people are going to choose that. Okay. And that choosing is also going to come only by divine inspiration. So what we can do is once again put in our best, and wherever it has to reach, whoever it has to reach, at whatever time it has to reach, it will reach that person. So what we have to ensure that we don't have to worry about whether 10,000 people are watching our posts or our videos. No, our job is, what is that post doing to me? See, just imagine, think about it. Swami himself, the avatar of the age. Look at all the great saints and sages who have walked this earth, whether it's Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Ramana Maharshi, or whether it is all the, Tukaram, Jnandev, Shirdi Baba. Look at, right? They didn't, during their lifetime, with all their powers, the entire world did not come to them, right? So if they themselves with that kind of power were not able to attract the entire world, then what are we going to do with our videos and our, small tidbits? So don't keep that as your benchmark, as why is this not reaching? Yes, it's a good problem to have. It's a good feeling to have that, it should reach more, it should reach more.